I've never reviewed or tested anything made by FNATIC, but all that changes today. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. These guys over at FNATIC, they really know how to make a good first impression, because this new Streak65 LP mechanical gaming keyboard is unbelievable. If you're a fan of compact gaming keyboards, then you really need to see this. Let's take a really quick look at what comes in the box. The keyboard comes all wrapped up in a little bit of plastic packaging to keep it nice and safe and clean. There's a little bit of paperwork here, including a quick start guide that actually has a surprising amount of detail in it. And look at this right here. This keyboard ships with a nice braided coiled USB to USB-C cable. I'm not used to seeing this on anything but the absolute highest end, most expensive keyboards that are out there. And it's a really awesome feature to have, and I'm really happy that they threw it in. For such a small keyboard, it's got a really nice feeling build. It's made of aluminum and it manages to keep the weight way down to just 420 grams. Despite the small footprint and feather-light design, it's surprisingly solid. There's virtually no flexibility in the frame, and that's true even when the feet are deployed. Speaking of the adjustable feet, these things flip out to the side and they've got a nice grippy rubber material on them, and there's actually more of that along the sides or the edges of the keyboard here, and that really helps keep this thing situated on your desk. And that's not something that I can say for a lot of compact keyboards. They have a tendency to move around just because of their small footprint and low surface area. But this has to be one of the grippiest gaming keyboards that I've used in this small compact form factor. And when I talk about this keyboard being compact, I really mean it. And I'm not just talking about the overall footprint, it's also the thickness. At its thinnest point, it's just 22 millimeters. That's so low profile that it basically negates the need for any kind of wrist rest. Now this is a 65% layout, so it's just a touch bigger than that super popular 60% design that everybody's super familiar with these days. And the only real difference here is you get a few extra keys over here on the right-hand side. And just like any compact board out there, you still have access to the secondary commands and functions and, stuff like multimedia controls on the function layer and all that sort of stuff. Keycaps are custom made to fit the low profile design of this keyboard, and they're excellent. These are full PBT double shot caps, very solid feeling, and they got this nice textured, it's actually pretty subtle, but there's a textured surface there that just adds a little bit of grip and adds to the overall premium feel of these caps. Powering the board, we have custom FNATIC orange speed switches made by Coiled. They have a very fast feel with a linear response and very smooth keystroke. Actuation occurs at just 1 millimeter into the stroke with 45 grams of force, and there's a total travel distance of 3.2 millimeters. FNATIC guarantees these switches for at least 50 million keystrokes, which is pretty much on par with a lot of other boards in this category. You can really tell a lot of effort went into designing these switches. They're just really solid. There's not a lot of wiggle or noticeable movement between the stem and where it connects to the switch body. Everything just feels really good and smooth. Even the stabilizers are a noticeable step up from a lot of boards out there. They come pre-lubricated from the factory, and they do a really good job at keeping some of the bigger keys nice and stable and solid and moving smoothly. One of the differences between this board and its predecessor is the addition of some noise dampening foam inside the board itself, and that's supposed to improve the overall acoustics and just basically the whole sound stage in general. Hopefully you were able to tell from that sound test that this board actually has a really nice sound. Key presses have a nice solid and crisp sound to them, and there's none of that metallic pinging or ringing sound that you can hear on a lot of other mechanical boards. For the last year or so, I've been gaming with red switches on my main keyboard, which are linear, so moving to this keyboard wasn't really a big shock for me and didn't take a lot of adapting like it would if I was to move over to something with a tactile bump or clicky sound or something like that. But one big difference that I noticed right away gaming with this board is just how fast, how insanely fast actually, these switches really are. I think it really comes down to a combination of the low profile keycaps, the 1 millimeter actuation point, smooth linear travel, and probably those lubed up stabilizers as well. All this comes together to make for a really fast feeling keyboard, and you know what? I totally fell in love with it. I don't have a single complaint about the Streak65 LP when it comes to its gaming performance, or really anything else so far for that matter. There's one more thing we gotta talk about here, and it's the RGB. Turns out FNATIC did a pretty good job with that as well, and I guess at this point in the review, I really shouldn't be all that surprised. The preset effects look good, everything's nice and bright, and thanks to the low profile keycaps, they let a ton of light shine through. And they even went out of their way to put 2 extra LEDs under the spacebar to make sure there's no dark spots or anything like that along the front edge of the board. It's not really a huge deal, but I think it just shows how much thought and effort went into designing this keyboard. You can also remove this little magnetic cover on the front of the board with the FNATIC logo, and that opens up to a window that lets even more of the RGB lighting shine through, and that kind of illuminates your desk a little bit. It's kind of a cool effect, but you know, nothing game changing or anything like that. But still, overall, this board is definitely not lacking in the RGB department. Now this is the part of the video where we'd normally talk pros and cons, but with the Streak65 LP, I really only have good things to say. We've got a premium aluminum build, PBT double shot keycaps, super smooth and responsive linear switches, a coiled USB-C cable, and nice bright vibrant RGB lighting. And it's all packed up into this gorgeous looking compact low profile 65% design. FNATIC must be one of the few companies out there that really pays attention to what consumers want, because the Streak65 LP checks all the right boxes. The price is $120 US, which to be fair is not cheap, but considering what you're getting with the Streak65 LP, it's definitely reasonable, and I have no problem highly recommending it. I'm gonna throw some purchasing links down in the description and all the full specs and details for you to check out if you want some more information on this thing, and make sure you get subscribed on your way out because there's a lot more content on the way, and we'll see ya.